All right, so let's finish this off. As we prepared the function setup select members list, and we want to call that, and I think it makes sense to call that in the onCreate method because it should be visible directly at the start, right? So inside of our onCreate method, we can add this little call for this function. So in onCreate, I add this setup selected members list function now. All right, now we still have this one thing where we had this little to do, right? Where we said, okay, we still need to implement the selected members functionality. So let's do that real quick. So here, what we need to do is we need to check for the action because we're getting an action here, right? So is it the action to select or is it the action to unselect? So here we say if the action is constants dot select. So if the user should be selecting something, what we want to do is we want to check the board details dot task list at the m task list position dot cards at the m card position dot assigned to dot contains. Pretty long statement, but basically we want to see if the user ID that is passed to us, so the user here, if that is inside of this assigned to, so user.id. So if it doesn't contain it, then we want to add the user. So we want to basically do the same thing here, assigned to dot add and that user dot id. Okay, so we check, is the user in there or is it not? If it's not in there, we want to add it to the assigned to list. All right, and otherwise we want to get rid of it from the list. So else we do the same thing as here, only that we don't add, but we remove. Okay, so we remove a specific element from the list. On top of that, we need to go through all of the members and then select the one that we just checked out to be set to false. So we need to have this for loop where we check if the m member details, or for the m member details list dot indices, if the m member details list at the position I dot id is the same as the user ID. What we then want to do is we want to set the selected to false, because then the user will not be selected anymore, right? If we deleted him from the list, then he's not selected anymore. And by the way, this selected, if you look at it, it's this user, we gave it the selected setting or this property, which is a Boolean. Because we need to make sure that if the user is selected, that it's also reflected in the user's object, so that if we store the user, that it will contain this information as well. And then after this else block, we can call the setup selected members list function again, which will then refresh everything. So this is the part where we did all of the magic, where we added some people to the selected members list, or we gotten rid of them, and where we loaded the recycler view with all of the different settings and so forth. So whenever we make changes to the members list, we also need to, of course, call this setup selected members list. All right, and then there is one last thing to do, and that is to go to our layout, which is our item card, that one here. And if we look at it, this is how an item card looks like currently, right? We have the card name, and that's pretty much it. So we have some text views here, members name, which is gone. So we have a bunch of stuff that is not visible. But what is important is that we add a recycler view in here. So just underneath the card name here, I would like to have a recycler view. So recycler view, and I'm gonna set the width to match parent and the height to wrap content. The visibility can be gone, so we make it invisible because we are going to make it visible via code. But in the tools I want to see it, so tools dot or colon visibility should be set to visible. Okay, so here I want this to be visible, and I need to give it an ID so that I can talk to it. Okay, and this one should get the ID of RV card underscore selected members list. Now I'm also giving it a little margin. So here margin top, which will be our default value for cards, or actually here, I think it's easier to search for margin top. So card margin top. Actually, it's not easier. It's this one here, card details value margin top. Alrighty. And at that point, if we test the application and we go to our board with image, then we go to a card that we have, and we can see we have two members, or one member here at the plus button. So this plus button is there because we added this one line here where we checked if the size is greater than 0, and we added the selected member, which is an empty one. So that's why this plus icon is actually visible. Okay, so here we have one member that is assigned to it, and that is our Homer. And now if we add Bart, you can see Bart is there as well. So now let's click on Bart again. Well, as it seems the unselect feature doesn't work yet. And well, yeah, it seems like the issue is that I have set this else case here into the wrong part of this if statement. So here, this else inside of the card details activity inside of our on item selected function, it should not be the else for the if board details is add user, but it should be for the else of the action constants select. All right, so let's cut this whole part out and put that underneath the else, or inside of the else for the if statement of the constant select action. Okay, so here we want to have it instead. Okay, so it's not inside of this if statement for the board details, but it's the else block here for the action equals constants select. All right, that should solve one of the issues, but then there is one more thing that I missed when recording, and that is when we go to our item member, this linear layout underneath our image. So here in item member we have this circle image view, and then we have this linear layout. But the problem is that this linear layout doesn't have any weight, and I need to give it some weight so that it will be displayed. So it means that I need to give it a layout weight of 1, because otherwise it will not display anything and it's not gonna add this tick box. Okay, so now let's check it again, because then I can show you what exactly I mean with this. All right, so back in our application, board with image, then we check out the card. Now let's see, okay, we have the members here, so we have Homer. Now let's click on the plus sign. You can see we only have Homer. Let's uncheck him, and you can see this checkbox now is working fine. All right. Now you might wonder why Bart is not there anymore. Well, that's because I've gotten rid of Bart. So let's add back our homie Bart here to the members of the board itself. So bart@gmail.com. Let's add him. All right, now let's go back to the card and see how the feature will work once we want to add another person to it, you can see now Bart is selectable as well. Let's select him. You can see now both of them are here. All right, and now let's see if it's persistent. So let's update the card and let's go back to the card once again to see if it is there. All right, yes, it is there. So now let me unselect Homer and update the card and go back to the board and to the card, and we can see only Bart is there. All right, so this feature works now, and it was quite some work, as you can see, but at least we have that sorted out now. And by the way, inside of the update card details function in our card details activity, there's one little bit of code that we also still need to add, and that is to update our task list. So task list, which is an array list of tasks, should be defined here as our mBoard details dot task list. And then we need to make sure that we remove the last entry. So remove add task list dot size -1, which basically is just this add button. So as we have it, when we add a task here, this add card, this part here is part of our add button, so to speak, and it's part of our task list because we added earlier on, right, in our code. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that you also have that because we don't want this part to be added to our database. All right, so see you in the next video.